You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for the show, and it has been a while since we've been on. Or at least it seems that way. I don't know if it's really been a while or if it just seems like it. I mean, it was only really 1 week of shows that we didn't do last week. But I don't know. I think it's because we actually do 2 nights in a row, and then we have to wait. That when we can't do it, it just seems like forever. And of course, Ted's with us. Hi, guys. What's going on, Ted?
Hey.
Glad to see it. Hopefully, you can stay up, because usually you'll immediately write in and say, "Hey, guys, what's going on? I can't stay, but I'll catch the rebroadcast or something." We were just joking about that, ironically, before. But yeah, so it's been a little bit since we've been on, but you know what? As usual, there is no shortage of things to talk about, and today we're going to talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. I feel like we've been really hitting the Acolyte pretty heavily, and of course the aftermath of its cancellation, and then of course there was the passing of James Earl Jones, which we did a really nice tribute to him. Be sure to check that out. And then of course we recently started to do a couple more fun shows. We did the, Who's the Hottest Woman in Star Wars. Be sure to check that one out. That's a popular one that's been on there. And so we've been able to have a little bit of fun with this, but now we actually have a little bit of news. We're going to turn our attention a little bit towards the news of everything, to where this Mandalorian and Grogu movie that seems to be the next project in line, and so far that seems to be the case. Now we have a cast list. Now, again, it's a little clickbaity, I admit, because really we only have 3 confirmed cast members, which we'll go over and we'll, talk about. And then, of course, I remember you said you wanted to actually do, like, hey, who should be in this movie that hasn't been announced? So we'll do that, too. But yeah, I mean, this is at least something is coming out on this film.
Yeah, I mean, this has been kind of the talk as far in the Star Wars universe is, what's going to be the premise of this movie. And then will there be another season of Mandalorian? That's the other question. Like, is this a bookend thing, or is this okay, we're kind of doing a little Marvel thing where we kind of do a couple of seasons, drop a movie, and then we continue on. We don't know just yet. So there's a lot to be talked about, in regards to the Mandalorian and Grogu, I guess, saga, if you want to call it that.
Well, what do you think, though? Which, if you had to guess, do you think that they're going to do any more seasons, or do you think that this is going to cap off? Like, in other words, they were going to do season 4, and then plans shifted. I think the writer's strike affected that a little bit. I'm not really sure what went on there, but all of a sudden this movie was announced. So there's been speculation that this could be it, that they just took the storyline from season 4, what would have been season 4, and now we're getting this.
Yeah, I think it all probably depends on how well this movie does, honestly, because I think Star Wars is really in the place right now where they're kind of, it seems in some ways like, because when the Acolyte being canceled so soon, like only after 1 season, right? I think people are I think Disney and Lucasfilm are kind of getting to the point where they're like, okay, we've got to, if something is not working, we got to get rid of it and move on to something else, because otherwise we're going to further sink this ship faster than we can keep it up, and which I think is a smart idea, in my opinion. So I think it depends. It really hinges on if this is going to be a successful film. We know season 3 of The Mandalorian wasn't as strong as the last 2, as the first 2, I should say. However, it's still like widely acclaimed. A lot of people still love the story of, the Mandalorian and Grogu. And so I think if they come up with a really compelling story, it depending on how it's set up, I mean, it could end it, or it could be one of those situations where, like, okay, yes, now we want to see we want more seasons of this. So and I think they're trying to maybe listen to the fans a little bit more. So I think It just really depends on how well this film does.
Well, but again, the rumor has been that they actually took the story that would have been season 4 and made it this movie. So I think with your point, if they did that, I guess they could always write a continuation and make that season 4 of The Mandalorian, or they could just leave it at that, because we really don't know. At least I don't remember. Maybe you remember differently, but I don't remember them ever giving us an end game. In other words, we're going to do X amount of seasons and then that's it. There was speculation that what would have been at least season 4 was probably going to be the last, no more than season 5. But again, this movie came out of nowhere, so a lot of people have really been speculating, like, you know what? Maybe they just figured it wasn't strong enough, or they couldn't do it, or maybe Kathleen Kennedy was like, look, we got to get a film out there at some point. None of the other films are really strong enough, because as you pointed out, this is going to be the future of the film franchise is probably going to hang on whatever the next movie is.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why they're going with this, is because I think they need to get back into the theaters. And I think they realize, okay, we need something that we know people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put out something that I don't know anything about, especially the way things have been going, people aren't going to go to the theaters. I mean, we're going to go just because we're huge fans. We have to see what this thing is, right? But I mean, I think when you start talking about the general populace, I think when you're talking about casual fans, after the failures of Book of Boba Fett, after the failures of Acolyte, after the failure of somewhat Ahsoka, it's a lot of people just really aren't going to be like, oh, I got to see this new Star Wars movie now. But everyone seemingly is in love with the Mandalorian and Grogu. So that's what's winning for you. So you got to go with, you got to put your best players on the field, right? So,
it's like you said, it's the only series that really, 3 took a little bit of a hit, but it wasn't enough to take down the entire series.
Right.
There's even speculation I was reading today. They're talking about they're developing season 2 of Obi-Wan. And that Ewan McGregor was like, he really wants to wear the Clone Wars armor and have more flashbacks with Hayden Christensen. And there's been talk that that's been in development. So we'll have to see, because a lot of people forget about Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was one of those, like, some people thought that it was a failure. Other people thought it was okay. Like, I don't think anybody loved it per se, but it was another one of those shows that had promise, but obviously it failed to deliver. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But in the meantime, there's at least 3 members of the cast that have been confirmed so far.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out, because as you and I talked about before we came on live tonight, there's a lot of glaring omissions. And is it because they're still trying to make deals with some of the actors? Is it because maybe the story doesn't necessarily call for it? I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. And of course, we're going to talk about that after we talk about the 3 that have been confirmed. But yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty fascinating discussion as far as where they might go with this. Because again, if they're actually lifting what would have been season 4 and they're making it into a film, it's like, okay, cool. Then probably what's going to happen is the continuation of season 3 is what we're looking at. But if they're actually coming up with an alternate storyline, almost like maybe what would have been a season 3.5, so the season 4 storyline is still intact, it just hasn't been made yet, and this movie may be a bridge. See, those are going to be the kinds of things that'll be interesting. Before we get into this, let me get this one from Ted. He says, if Disney could start think about what the customers want instead of taking the fans for granted and doing what the creatives want to do, things will fix itself rapidly. Well, the only thing that I would say to that, though, and you and I have had this discussion quite a bit, is that, we always talk about the fans. What do the fans want? What do the people want? But really, if the fans are actually in a bunch of different factions, it's kind of like if you're Kathleen Kennedy and you say, okay, I'm going to please the fans. Well, which group? Right? Because they all want slightly different things out of this.
I think you have to find a common thread and then build upon that. You're not going to make everyone happy. I mean, we know that just in life and in anything. Everybody's going, oh, they should have did this, or why didn't they? They could have easily, done the heir to the empire thing, or they could. There's so much stuff that we could squawk about. And it's funny because I was uh I was watching wrestling. WWE had its pay-per-view yesterday, and they always had this. They have a press conference now after these things, which is hilarious to me. But um, one of the things that Triple H said, and they were asking them. Someone asked him the question about like the storylines, of course, that go into wrestling, and they were asking, as far as like they're changing their format from 3 hours to like 2 hours because they're moving to Netflix. And it's like, well, is that hard for you? And he was just like, well, yeah, in some ways, because you kind of get used to something. He's like, but people just want, good stories. If you give them good content, he's like, people don't care if it's, when you go to a movie, if the movie's an hour and a half or 3 hours, it's like, as long as it tells the story in an effective way where people really feel like when they leave, they're like, okay, that was good. That's all they really care about. And I think that's the same thing that goes here. I think it's really just about you can take the common thread that people in general want from Star Wars, which is okay, we kind of already acknowledged that people want to get away from the Skywalker saga. We've already acknowledged that people want fresh new ideas, but and they want a good story. And I think if you just look at that and then it's like, okay, and then look at what the framework of Star Wars is. We always often bring it up, how we saw that wonderful roundtable discussion when they were talking about what is Star Wars, and you have Filoni and everybody sitting around the table. I think that's what it is. You just have to find people who are really good at telling great stories, developing fleshed out characters, finding some actors who, in David's words, who want to come to work, who really want to act, and who really can deliver these things. Um, I think that's you'll be fine. But I think what happens is that a lot of times they try to either do too much or they try to rely on the old. And it's hard to find that sweet spot, in the middle where that's the balance of the force, if you will. That's where you really need to be. That's what made the original trilogy, which is the gold standard. That's what made that so well done, is because you had compelling characters, you had great actors who could really bring this stuff out, and you had a great story. And that's why we love it today. So I think that's just basically what it boils down to. You just have to find a common thread, because I agree with you. You do have a bunch of people who have different ideas of like, oh, Star Wars should do this, and what about and it's my thing is find a common thread that everyone's kind of generally saying, stick to those major points, and then just build on that.
Well, and you have to do that without playing it too safe too, because
Yeah.
obviously the big trap is to be so vanilla, so homogenized that you end up you're like playing it too safe. And then of course, the cousin of that is you start to rely a little bit on fan service too much. And
Well, you have to.
the member
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
berries as they call it, it's like
Right. But I think you have to think about like those little moments, the things that it's the nuanced things that people really love. Like, for example, getting Nick Gillard, someone like that, to do your battles, like your lightsaber battles, like stuff like finding someone who's really good at that. And okay, we need some cool, fresh, not too crouching tiger, hidden dragonish, but just some really good like action, like the whole remake they did for A New Hope between Obi-Wan and Vader. Like whoever choreographed that, there you go. Like get that person to come on in
well,
and
and the other thing you got to look at too, and because this goes along the same lines, is that this is one of the things that Lucas did. Lucas wanted to stay true to what he had created, and he didn't really worry about what the fans thought.
Mhm.
And that's really, I think, what you have to do. You just have to get back to what makes Star Wars, and not necessarily cater to any particular group of fans. And if you do that enough, people will come back on board. Now, unfortunately, it's just the social media world we live in. You're always going to have the toxic fan base, I think. I mean, people were
Sure.
on board for a while, but once it went off the rails with The Last
Unravel, yep.
Jedi, I don't think you're ever going to get it back. I don't think you're ever going to truly, I mean, unless you come up with something that just hits it so dead on, right? Like,
You gotta have like Michael Jackson's Thriller, like almost every time. Like when you drop something new,
well,
it's
you
gotta
have
like
to, and
where it's undeniable, or people are like,
or at
okay, you
least
know what?
one project. Like, I mean, you're probably right though. Like if they do a trilogy or something, or maybe if they do 2 or 3 movies, and maybe they're not necessarily a trilogy, but they're standalone, whatever it is. Yes, I
Whatever it
would
is.
agree. The next, let's just say, phase of projects
Mhm.
really needs to hit the mark, and it really needs to hit it dead on. And unfortunately,
Absolutely.
that's the only way that you can probably bring some, at least, illusion of invincibility back to the franchise. Even though the reality is now, even if they do something really good, they're one bad project away from it unraveling and everybody just going up. See, kind of like the
Yeah, that's what I
Lions,
said.
actually.
That's what I'm saying. Like you need
Did
to
they
have a
play today,
couple where
by the
they
way?
no, they're a bye week. This is a bye week
Okay,
for them.
all right.
They play because they played Monday night.
All right. Right. Yep. Okay.
But
But
yeah, but that's a
it's a
great
lot
example
like
though.
them though, because okay, they had a great season last year. They're they're doing well this year. Some issues. There's some like concern, but hey, they're winning the games, right? But the thing is, because of the track record that they've had, even if they have like this slamming season, right? They're always, as soon as they lose, it's up, same old Lions. It's like it really doesn't take much. Like people hating on them is really more the default setting.
Setting.
And
Yeah.
that's where unfortunately Star Wars has gotten to. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I totally agree.
All right. So confirmed cast members, this one should come as no surprise. Well, actually it kind of does in a way. Pedro Pascal,
Yeah, I was
okay?
gonna say it's
Because
because
there was some
yeah, he's had
serious
some issues.
talk. Yeah.
Yep.
That he wasn't going to return, that there was talk that he wasn't going to return. So I think it's good that he is. I think that the Mandalorian would have lost a little bit if he hadn't. At least come back to voice him. Although, with AI, they can just
I was just about to say that, like with AI now, I mean
guess it
that's
doesn't
it
matter,
almost
right?
don't matter. Yeah, exactly. That's the crazy thing that in the world that we live in now is that you got enough content on someone. Bye, see ya. As long as and Star Wars owns everything, so
Well,
there
and
you
the other
go.
thing too, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he retake the oath or something where now he's definitely not taking off his helmet?
Yes, he did.
Because he
As I
got
said,
him
he
he got out
purified.
of trouble, he got the
Yeah,
whatever
that's
that
when
thing
he went
was.
to he went to the cave, and
Right.
that's when he saw that weird dragon thing or whatever the heck the
Mhm.
thing was. That's when I say he purified himself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
Yeah.
Um,
Pretty much. But didn't he take some artifact with him or something like that to prove that he was there or
yeah, he had the water in a vial or something like that.
something? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. And they had to test it for
yep.
purification, kind of like, cocaine or
Mhm.
something.
It's been stepped on.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, there's a little bit of fentanyl in this, guys.
Eh,
But yeah, I think that honestly, I have to admit, I am mildly surprised by this only because of all the talk of him not returning. I don't know, to me it seemed like it was a done deal. Like it seemed like he really wasn't going to be returning.
yeah, I think they kind of because well, he was on the other show, The Last of Us too, and
Oh,
that's the name of the
right.
show, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I remember he was doing that show, and that we were trying to figure out if is that going to be his new thing, and um, that was kind of like the big to do with him. But I'm glad to see him back. I think even though we really don't see him a lot, especially without the helmet, it's kind of like having David Prowse or just knowing that he's there, because
Mhm.
that's kind of who we got introduced to. So it's just, his movement, certain things that he does, we've kind of gotten used to those things. and we've covered different actors who've done that. David Prowse, of course, aforementioned. Um, what's the guy? I can't think of his name, but he played Boba Fett, the original
Oh,
Boba Fett.
Jeremy Bullock.
Jeremy Bullock, yeah, Jeremy Bullock. Um, so yeah, those characters, never took off their helmets, but there was a certain presence that you can tell, like, okay, yep, that's them in the suit. So I think that um, I think it's great that he's back. I think it's great for the franchise, and I think you need all guns, especially when you're trying to push Star Wars and pull it up out of the muck and the mire that it's in. You need all your hitters with you.
Well, especially if you're gonna do a movie, like it'd be one thing if this was like season 4, but if you're gonna put this as some sort of a theatrical thing and it's gonna be the
Right.
Mandalorian as one of the featured characters, it's like, yeah, you have to get this guy back. I mean, you can't just put somebody
Hmm.
else. Because again, I mean, look, we know, all right, we know that there have been other people that are in the suit. There's actually, I think, like 2 or 3 other guys, or like 2 other guys plus Pedro himself, who actually wear the suit. I mean, Pedro was kind of like, look, I'm not in the suit 90% of the time. And that's what makes him different than the David Prowse situation. Because the
Yeah.
David Prowse situation,
Always in the suit.
he's always in the suit. James Earl Jones does the voice. You have some continuity there. They have established, though, that look, it's really the voice and the non helmet stuff where Pedro is pretty much like key. But still, if you're going to carry this theatrically, I think it is important that you have all hands on deck. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, if you're gonna, like you said, to your point, Eric, even for marketing value, like if you market this thing and you don't have his name, it's kind of, even though like he says like, oh well, I'm not in 90% of the stuff anyway. It's like, but your name is in the, so
Yep.
we don't know when or where but if your name is not on the marquee, it kind of is like, you know.
Well, and especially
So
because again, it's the voice, right? Like James Earl Jones is never in the Vader outfit, but he was
right.
the voice.
Hmm.
Never set foot on the set, but he was the voice, and that cannot be understated. You need Pedro there in order for that continuity to take place. So, yeah, that one's somewhat of a no-brainer, but again, it was in danger. Like it wasn't a
Hmm.
done deal. You would think, "Oh, well, that's obvious," but there was a lot of discussion going back and forth as to whether or not he was going to return or not. Now, this next one, it's kind of weird. I mean, when you just look at the 3 who were confirmed,
Right. I know.
it's really strange because
Yeah.
none of them, I mean, Pedro's the only real quote unquote super main character that had been in The
Hmm.
Mandalorian who has been confirmed. And in the next one is Steve Blum, who, of course, had a brief moment as Zeb. And it's like, okay, he's in it. Cool.
Yeah. And no, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great because to see Zeb. I mean, first of all, let's just give it up for the CG on this guy, man. I mean, that was really well done, you know. But yeah, I think having it was cool to know that he's going to be in it, and I hope he has more of a bigger role because he was one of those characters I really have grown to love from
Oh,
Rebels.
yeah. Yeah. 100%. But again, doesn't it make more sense for him to pop up in Ahsoka?
Yeah, I could see that, but well,
Because that's where you
yes
have the
and
rest
no.
of the Ghost crew, right? You have Sabine, you have Hera,
Well, see, the thing is though, it's
Ezra.
like, well, if you think about it, Hera is a part of like the part of the whole New Republic thing, and so is Zeb, obviously. But I think Zeb may be in a different sector of it now. I mean, he probably might still, go with Hera on some things, but by and large, Hera having a higher ranking position in the New Republic, it stands to reason why, okay, Zeb might have to find somewhere else. And then, of course, Kanan's dead. and then you had um, Ezra was basically deemed, missing in action, so you never really knew where he went. So that's and it's
Yeah, it's
not
true.
like
He's
Harold went to
only
go
he's only now as of the season finale of Ahsoka
right
on his or like back in the
back
four
into
worlds
the
again.
normal.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, I can understand that. They all kind of taking different positions and are leading different things, and so that's why I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Zeb, especially now when you have um, Moff Gideon around, and I'm really wondering, are they going to even try to insert Thrawn into this a little bit? But that's another conversation for maybe
Well,
tomorrow.
I'm yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to be really we would have to have more plot details to know, and that's why this is a very very strange reveal. These
Hmm.
three particular cast members where you're like, okay, I don't really know where this is going because like you said, we really don't know too much other than Zeb having that cameo. And obviously he's with our New Republic fighters or whatever. So we
Yeah,
understand that. We get that. We understand that he's a part of that group and obviously the door was left open at the end of season 3 that perhaps Din will start to do some missions for the New Republic that they can, tap him. And I'm sure that that's probably going to be part of what's going to happen is that maybe he'll end up working with Zeb or maybe, you know, at least he's going to be a part of it, but it's still kind of up in the air. I really don't understand. I remember when I was reading this, like that just completely threw me. I'm like, really? I mean, don't get me
yeah,
wrong. I mean, I wanted to see more of him, but what I thought was happening, because again, The Mandalorian always acted as somewhat of the mothership for all the Disney Plus shows. That's like I mean,
yeah.
obviously, except for things like Obi-Wan, which took place between episodes 3 and 4, but anything that's post Return of the Jedi, you basically have The Mandalorian is like the mothership, which then spawns off all these
Ahsoka,
yeah, like
Book of
all the
Book.
spin-off series
Yeah,
or at least like alternate storylines or whatever. Because that's when we would always speculated, right, that they're going to bring them all together in Avengers style in a film, which we thought was going to happen after season 4 of The Mandalorian, season 2 of Ahsoka, if there was a season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett, which obviously I think that's dead in the water, but Boba Fett is still free to come into the fold at any point in any of the shows. And maybe that's where Zeb's role is. Maybe Zeb is kind of like that sort of ancillary character, much like how Boba Fett is, where they bring him in and out. But certainly it exists, right? I mean, it's just a really strange move to me that first of all, they moved this movie up the timeline to where they're going to be releasing it. I mean, it looks like this is the next thing.
hmm
It just seems like it's kind of weird, right? Like after season 3 and then after season 1 of Ahsoka, like it's a really weird spot to have a movie unless, and of course this will go into tomorrow's discussion, because tomorrow we're going to talk about how Disney is really riding on this film being successful and what could happen. And for that reason, it might make sense to go ahead and try to tie up that whole Thrawn storyline that they started in Ahsoka. Well, really, it started in The Mandalorian season 2 and
yeah,
then carried over into Ahsoka, and now they could bring it back to this film and maybe tie it up.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot that we're gonna definitely be talking about on tomorrow. But yeah, I think I'm with you though with Zeb. I mean, I think that bringing him in and really just making him like one of the main confirmations has me wondering a couple things. Like, what are they? I think they're planning something big. I think they're planning some, and I think they don't want to give it away just yet. I think we might have some guest appearances um, by some characters that was like, okay, oh, they're bringing this person back. Cool. And, probably going to definitely have some new ones, especially with the next one we have coming in. But yeah, it is a weird list though for them just to confirm these
This
three,
is a
and
really
that's it.
bizarre. This whole list is bizarre. By the way, we have somebody that I've never seen chat before. Sea Dart says hi. Hi.
Hey,
Glad that you're watching. We always like it when new people are chatting in. But yeah, this is a really eclectic, weird list. And with that, let's just go ahead and get to our number three. Number three, of course, is a sci-fi legend at this point, and that is
absolutely.
Sigourney Weaver. It's like,
Yep.
all right.
We're talking about aliens, so I guess
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm glad to
bring in a.
see, I'm glad, right? I am glad to see that she is in this, that she's actually coming to Star Wars, because I think she could bring a lot to the franchise. But
Yeah, I think. Okay, I'm sorry.
I no, I mean, I'm still stymied over here with it, so you're free to go.
No, I mean, there's something about her says like she's definitely one of those leaders in the New Republic, though. Like she's definitely one of those, um, like a Mon Mothma type. Just one of those matriarchs
Oh
uh,
yeah, absolutely.
of the New Republic. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I feel like her with Leia and just trying to rebuild everything. I think this is her character, and I'm really anxious to see because she's a phenomenal talent. Of course, we all know her, like you said, sci-fi legend from the Aliens movie. But yeah, I think that um, she brings she brings some acting chops, and I just hope they utilize her properly. That's the thing I just hope with Star Wars is that they bring in some phenomenal talent, but then they underutilize them. And I don't understand it. Like, why waste the time? Why waste the money, the budget? I mean, you could have for her salary, you could have added some more effects if you're going to do that. So I just really hope that if you're going to bring in someone of the with the credentials of Sigourney Weaver, that you really utilize her to her full potential and allow her to really um, light up the screen for us.
Oh yeah. Now, Cedar basically says the best Star Wars movie I've seen after the first three was Star Chaser: The Legend of Orin. It sounds familiar, but I'm not 100% sure on
That was a
that
movie.
one. I think so. Alien is the greatest of all time. Goes on to say, wow, Sigourney Weaver in Star Wars. Yeah, I know. That's basically what I
I
said
know.
too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, why can't lightsabers cut through force fields? That just depends on
Who's
who's
writing
making it. Yeah.
it?
It's like, because in the expanded universe novels, they can. Not always. But again, it's one of those liberty things, right? Like, just whatever the writers want. It's like, why do Jedi have some powers and some projects and then suddenly forget that they have that power when it would come in really handy in situations in another project? It just, who knows?
Right.
But yeah, Sigourney Weaver is like you said, she brings some gravitas, she brings some acting chops, she brings, and look, let's not ignore this. As Cedar basically says, right? Alien is the greatest of all time. I'm sure that they're trying to pull in, hey, let's do a cross franchise thing and pull in somebody that has some marquee value that
Yeah.
might be able to lend a little bit of weight to this and bring in additional fans.
Yeah, just don't make her like some lady at the marketplace where he buys like some part for his ship and that's all we see of her. Like that's the crap I don't want. Like don't bring in Sigourney Weaver if you're just gonna do that. You could have got some, graduate from film school or something for that. You don't bring in Sigourney Weaver to be, oh, you want a star map? Oh, well, you have to go see so and so about this. Bye, see you later.
Hey
And
man,
that's all we see of Sigourney
but
Weaver. Like, no,
but that is
that that
still
that
the overuse has got to be Vin Diesel as Groot.
oh
That is
yeah,
still
yeah,
like, really?
absolutely,
Why? Why?
yeah, exactly.
Why do you bring in, I mean, okay, calling him an A-list actor, I know
Yeah, stretch.
it's a stretch. David might feel differently because of the Fast and the Furious, but is a stretch.
Well, let's
And
just
look,
say a well-known actor of
well-known actor. That well-known actor, you could get any like film student or whatever to say I am Groot
to
through.
pull a homeless person off the street and just say that. Jesus Christ.
Well, and again, and so you're right. It does stand a reason that they could waste Sigourney Weaver, right? I mean, there has
Mhm.
definitely been precedent set to
Yes.
actually waste people. I mean, you get some people like, okay, Daniel Craig, right? He wanted to play a stormtrooper. That was something he really wanted to do, so they let him do that. I don't necessarily count that as a waste.
No, and especially like you don't, but he wasn't marqueed in it either. You're
Well,
not
that's true,
announcing that
right?
Daniel
Like his
Craig is
name is
going to
at the
be.
time.
Yeah, exactly. You're not putting him in the credit. I mean, like no, you're not doing that. It's just like, oh, that's Daniel Craig's voice. All right, that's cool that they did that. But if you're gonna bring Sigourney, she needs to be like a Mace Windu. She needs to be like Samuel L. Jackson
Yep.
as Mace Windu. That's what I'm talking about.
Or even Laura
Don't
Dern as
Laura,
Hodo.
yeah,
I
but
mean, you get people that, or even what's her name, Genevieve, whatever, that plays Mon Mothma.
Mama Mothma, yeah. Or you have, but see, like when we're talking about like these failures, I'm talking about Gwendolyn Christie.
Oh
With
yeah. Well,
Captain Phasma, a waste, a complete waste. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's just.
well,
Or
all
let's
right,
not
hold on
forget
though. I've got to. Well, before
okay,
you move on, I want to go back to the Gwendolyn Christie thing because
okay.
I think the character was wasted. I don't necessarily think that she was wasted, only because she did have a lot of dialogue and her particular style and everything. I mean, true. You can make the argument that they could have thrown anybody in the outfit or had him voice or whatever, but she did lend a little bit of an imposing thing as Captain Phasma, and she did have some key dialogue. So I don't think I think the character was wasted. I don't necessarily know if she was wasted.
Well, I think she was wasted because they wasted the character. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think
Well, yeah, and from
if
that
you're going to waste a
standpoint, I would
character,
agree.
waste someone else's time that's relevant. I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not really going to do much, especially like once again, like you got her parading, you're parading her around like in all the marketing to be this big and thing. She just ends up in a trash compactor for like 90% of the. I mean, come on, people. Like, really?
Yeah, I know. I mean, so many issues really with the sequel trilogy, unfortunately. But again, I mean, there's a difference though between, and sure, you could say that she was wasted by proxy, right? You waste the character, you're wasting the actor that's playing the character. I could get behind that to a certain degree, but what I'm talking about when I say it's like a waste is when you could put anybody in the role. Right? That's what I consider wasting an actor, is that when it's like you're bringing in this particular actor who's capable of so much to do so little.
Benicio del Toro, another one.
There you go. Now that is an example right there. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was just.
Yeah, you bring in somebody like that, absolutely. 100%. I couldn't agree more. That's a good example of wasting a character.
Mhm.
But again, I don't think, well, here's the thing. I'm not going to give Lucasfilm the credit to say that they wouldn't waste Sigourney Weaver's character. They might. There's precedence for that. But
Mhm.
I don't think Sigourney Weaver would have said yes unless there was something to this.
Yeah, unless she's like behind her mortgage or something, and she needs.
Well, yeah. I mean, so there's an infamous story in it. This is why I can't wait until we can start our entertainment exchange show. So we're talking about like
all the behind the scenes
well,
stuff. And
I mean, the thing is like just any project, any movies, any television. The problem with us doing that show is where do we start? There's like so much stuff that we can cover, right? But one of the things that's an interesting story that goes into what you're talking about is Michael Caine with Jaws of Revenge. So he ended up doing Jaws of Revenge, because he, I don't remember if he was working on his house or if he was trying to buy a house or something like that, but he pretty much just did the movie just to pay for this house. There's another story that was really similar to that. I know Oscar Isaac was quoted as saying something to that effect too, like, when they asked him,
Like,
will you do Star Wars again? He's like, well, if I need another house or something like that, sure. But even he's warmed up to it. That's what's
right.
really funny, is that all the sequel trilogy actors have more or less warmed up to it. But I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to just see where that goes. But, I mean, pretty much that's the cast as revealed so far. I don't know. I mean, there's some glaring omissions. I know you wanted to point out some of them.
Yeah. Definitely one being Katie Sackhoff, like who plays Bo-Katan. That's definitely one that, because when we last saw her, like she was kind of leading the rest of their little Mandalorian army that when they tried to go after Moff Gideon, and they were just getting like mowed down, and Dan pretty much sacrificed himself, like, hey, get everybody out of there. And so I'm surprised that her name hasn't popped up in the confirmed cast list,
But
because she's a very pivotal character, especially due to the whole dark side thing.
well, sure. But, and again, I think a lot of this is going to ride on what's the plot, right? Like
Right.
because it could very well be, and again, I know she's pretty locked in. It could be a situation where whatever plot they're trying to explore with this movie doesn't really have much to do with her character. I can't imagine that, only because she's like really rooted into it,
Yeah.
but the possibility exists.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if we're going to do the continuation of this story, um,
But we
like
don't
you
know
said,
if it's a continuation.
well, I mean, it has to be a continuation of some sort.
Well, kind of, but it depends on what it
You see what I'm
is.
saying?
Well, sort of,
I got
but here I'll give you an example. The Book of Boba Fett, both Din and Grogu came and joined that battle. That had nothing to do with the plot of the whole Mandalorian story arc. So they could go off on some other little adventure that may not, in other words, it might veer off from the main storyline of The Mandalorian. That's why I think it's really important for us to know, was this supposed to be season 4 and now they're just making it into a movie? Is this just kind of like another chapter in the adventures of Grogu and Din?
Well,
We
the,
don't
the
know.
only reason why the only reason why I say that is this. It's because of where we last left Din. Because it's like you can't just pop up with him flying around, just doing, like, he was captured. So it's kind of like you had that whole situation with Grogu, using the force to block that explosion and everything like that. So I just think that you gotta kind of, at some point, especially in a film, like, you have to acknowledge at some point, like, he's got to go for her for help, or at least for something. I mean, it just wouldn't make, to me, it just wouldn't that make that much sense to not have her. But the other one, we could kind of talk about these, simultaneously if you like. But Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, that's another one. Like, he's a central villain in all this. So why isn't his name already confirmed for this?
Because again, we don't know the plot. Might have nothing to do with him.
Yeah, I did. It just, well, again, if you're trying to, I guess, and I see your point, Eric. I definitely see your
Oh,
point.
no, don't get me
I
wrong. This is not
I'm just
my
saying.
point. This is not my point. I'm just saying that could be a
No, I mean,
reason why. Because Lucasfilm, we don't know. We don't, first of all, we don't have enough information really to judge either way. We're just going by
mhm.
what we have. But let's just say, because everything that, you're talking about makes sense. But, since when has Lucasfilm always made sense?
True. I guess what I'm going is like, if going back to our point that we made at the top of the show, if you're going to put this into the theater and you're going to bring in you want people to like come back to Star Wars, and you know that the Mandalorian is the flagship show. This is the one that everyone loves to see. Well, they're part of that. Like it's almost like having the Skywalker trilogy without Vader. Like, how do you have that without Vader in there at some point? Because he's the central villain. So it just would stand to reason that at some point you have to address Moff Gideon and what's going on with him, and all the craziness that's all I'm saying, is that if you're going to if you're going to put the name Mandalorian and Grogu in there, and everybody knows, like, okay, these are the main players. Now notably, I don't know what they're going to do about Grief Karga, because unfortunately Carl Weathers has passed on. Now you might not now see that's one, I can understand why.
Well, we know why he wasn't confirmed.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we know why he wasn't in the confirmed cast list.
Too soon,
unless he did. Well, it's been since February. It's fine.
Well, and we did a tribute. We did a proper nice tribute to Carl Weathers, so it's okay. We're allowed to do this.
Yes, there is no tomorrow. So listen, but I think that's one of those characters. Like, see, you still have to kind of explain him, because he's kind of the magistrate of Navarro. So it's at some point you're going to have to address, okay, where is he?
Well, especially considering Din settled on Navarro.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So all right, let me get to, because there's a couple. There's another new person. At least I think it's new, unless it's somebody under a different name. Who knows? Universal. Universal says, "Hello, gentlemen," and then goes on to say, "Cass was revealed." No, it sounds like David, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes. Well, again, partially. That's what we're actually talking about right now, is that the cast wasn't fully revealed, and we're talking about some of the omissions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, Carl Weathers, we get that.
Understandably so.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that it's necessary to recast Grief Karga. They can simply mention his name. He's the magistrate in Navarro. It's cool, whatever, right?
Or write him off.
Write him off. But Katie Sackhoff, Giancarlo Esposito, again, but here's the thing that I was going to say, though. If they're going to introduce something else, because again, if you want to bring those two in, you almost now have to start dealing with the Thrawn storyline, because that's where everything was moving more or less at the end of season 3. Because remember, he's the one pulling the strings. Because you had Moff Gideon talking about Thrawn, like, hey, I don't know, what this guy's all about, why should we wait for him, that kind of thing. So all those characters basically tie into that storyline. If they don't want to deal with that storyline right now, but they want to be able to give people a fun Star Wars adventure, they could simply come up with something that brings Din and Grogu away from that situation into something else.
Yeah, but do you think that would be wise?
No, and I was just about, it's funny that you actually asked that, because I was just I was thinking in my head, like, I wonder if I don't necessarily think that's the smartest decision, but it does fit. Like, this is why maybe they weren't announced. Or again, it could be something, maybe we're moving out of the Star Wars universe into the real world here. Maybe the deals just haven't been finalized.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a great disservice. And you talking about polarizing the fans. It's like, I think you can't announce a movie like that and then you not have your major players in it. You can't. People want to see the continuation, because after season 3, it's like, okay, we want to see what's going on, and you take us on this whole different adventure, which in and of itself may be cool. And it's like, okay, but then now we have to figure out if that's going to be. I mean, if you're going to take them on a completely different adventure, it can't be the bookend because you still, unless you're going to
Right. That's what I'm
close it
saying.
out
Maybe it's
in
not.
Ahsoka with with Thrawn.
Well, okay, that's
Because you got,
possible too. I mean,
you see what
right.
I'm saying?
Yeah, you do
Because
this
you got
movie
two.
and then you wrap it up in Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah, if you wrap it up in Ahsoka season 2, you could do it that way
That'd
because you
be a
have enough.
really weird way of doing it, though.
Exactly, and I think that would be, like I said, I think that would be a disservice to fans. So I think it's not like they haven't done that before, but
Yeah, I was gonna
still,
say. I mean, it's not. Again, I
it's
mean,
not
we're
unprecedented.
talking about Lucasfilm under Disney. I mean, anything's possible. So C Dart has a bunch of unrelated questions that we might as
Okay.
well answer. Says, what is the best animated Star Wars series? Gendy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars 2003. I mean, that's up there. That is up there.
Mm.
But
The Clone Wars.
yeah, I'd have to lean towards that too.
The Clone Wars, followed by in my order would be the Clone Wars.
Ooh, ranking the animated
Right.
series. That's almost something. That almost sounds like a show we should do.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a
'Cause you
good topic.
you
We've
got
never done that before.
yeah, we got Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch,
Tales of the
and
Jedi, Tales of the
Tales of the
Empire.
Jedi. Well, that's kind of all I want to do.
Hey,
I
don't
want to
forget
do.
Resistance.
I try to.
Or your favorite, Visions. Of course, Visions is number 1, right?
Only in your mind.
Hey, yeah. But I would
But
overall,
yeah.
I would have to agree though. I mean, if we're dealing with, and we should do that as a show, we should rank the animated series.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, I don't think it's any mystery. I think Clone Wars would be number 1. All right, the next unrelated one, which by the way, we don't mind. I mean, this is like a discussion show. The topics are just whatever. Who is a great voice actor ever? Orson Welles as Unicorn in Transformers, the movie, or James Earl Jones as Vader?
The greatest voice actor ever,
Yeah.
James Earl Jones.
And we're not just saying that because it's a Star Wars thing.
No, but you also have to think about Mufasa as well.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
I mean, that's just as iconic as Vader, quite frankly.
Well, and this goes into C Dart's next question, actually. Who's going to voice Vader now? James Earl Jones is dead, and of course, AI voice? Yeah,
James Earl Jones.
AI voice.
AI James.
So in case,
James Earl
yeah,
Jones.
right. In case people haven't clued in on it, basically James Earl Jones did sign away rights or whatever, gave a blanket license to Lucasfilm to use his voice however. So future Vader performances are pretty much going to be covered under that. Okay, so now Universal's got some things going. It says the Mandalorian Grogu project has been in production since August. Cast are currently under NDAs. Says only 4 characters have been revealed thus far. We only had 3. So you're going to have to let us know who the 4th character is because in everything that we've read, it's only been 3. And again, that has been Pedro Pascal, of course, as Din. Steve, oh man, I just blanked on his name. Brown? As Zeb.
Blum.
Yeah.
Steve Blum.
Yes, thank you. And then, of course, Sigourney Weaver, as we don't know yet. So,
as we don't know yet.
As we don't know yet. We're at a loss. Now, if you know of a 4th character that's been confirmed, let us know. Because so far we haven't clued in on that. Only 3 have been revealed that we know of. And then Universal goes on to say, Mando Season 4 was canceled. The footage that was filmed for Season 4 has been put into the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Yeah, I don't know if I saw anything official on that or not.
Yeah, no, there was talks about. I don't know if there was.
There was, yeah. I mean, and that was definitely a thing. And I know there's been a lot of heavy speculation on that too, including by us. I mean, we've been saying that for the last year. Like, I wonder if they're going to. Actually, it was ever since the Mandalorian Grogu movie was even announced.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, is this going to be basically what we've been talking about tonight? Is this going to be a situation where it takes the place of season 4? They just basically lifted the storyline of season 4 and said, hey, let's go make a movie out of it. In which case, if that is the case, then that makes all of the omissions that we've been talking about pretty glaring. Now, again, it depends on who this 4th mystery cast member is. It's been confirmed. Because, again, anything that we've looked at has all been talking about just 3. But it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, like I said, I think that we're going to get more cast reveals, and of course, we're going to go into that. I mean, as time moves on, we'll talk about it. We're going to do a variety of shows. Another thing you guys can look for is I'm going to start doing more YouTube shorts again, but this time they're going to be a little different than the ones that we put out before. The ones that we put out before were basically just like these little graphical character descriptions or whatever that were just kind of like these fun daily dose of, here's your Star Wars character of the day kind of thing. But I want to do something a little bit more elaborate. So watch for those at some point as well. And again, make sure that you guys check us out tomorrow, because tomorrow night, we're actually going to continue tonight's discussion, because this is sort of a twofold thing, right? Today, we got a few of the cast members that were revealed. Like, very few. Like 3. 4 according to Universal, but Universal hasn't written in who is revealed. So again, who we think has been revealed and who we've read has been revealed is Pedro Pascal, Steve Blum. Is that what you said? I don't know why I can remember his name. And then, of course, Sigourney Weaver. But if there's a 4th, yeah, fine. But I'm sure that they're going to reveal more in the coming months. And, the release date of this thing is going to be... it's still a good amount away, but obviously this is looking like this might be the next project. Tomorrow we're pretty much going to talk about Disney pretty much writing everything on this movie. Because one of the things that we said at the opening of this show, they really have to get this one right. This is going to be the first return to a theatrical release since The Rise of Skywalker. And there's already a lot of division, a lot of toxicity. So we'll just have to see how that all plays out. But they're going to have to get it right. And tomorrow, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what should they do, in which direction should they go. So you guys are going to want to join that discussion, because that's going to be, I think, a pretty active one. Okay, Universal chats in. Ahsoka Season 2 project starts filming after Mandalorian and Grogu project is completed. Post-production, which is tentative for May 2025. Okay, that makes sense, because I believe 2026, May of 2026, I think, is when the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is supposed to hit. So if it wraps up production in 2025, goes into post-production, or unless they complete, I don't know if they're going to complete post-production by then. It really depends. Again, it's really weird how Lucasfilm keeps doing this. They keep everything so tight-lipped. And some of that's fine, but some of that's a little bit detrimental to the brand, It's like, at least give us something. I get that you don't want to release every plot detail. Maybe you want to keep a few surprise characters to yourself. All right, I get that. But you're given almost no information, and then what Lucasfilm has this nasty tendency of doing is that they'll just start to bombard you with marketing like weeks before the thing is released, and it's like, well, what are you guys doing?
Right. It's not the best marketing plan.
Yeah, not really. No. But it's Disney under Lucasfilm. So you guys are going to definitely want to watch that tomorrow. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight's show. It was nice to be back. We haven't been on for a couple of weeks now, and I really started to feel it. And I want to welcome all the new subscribers, because we have promoted a few videos. We got a bunch of new subscribers. So if you guys are watching for the first time, we got a couple of new people chatting tonight. That was nice. We want to grow this community, have everybody talking, discussing Star Wars, because really that's what this show's all about. It's not a strict news show. It's not like a lot of the other Star Wars shows that you see out there on YouTube. This one is basically, we're all a bunch of fans. We like to get together and we just talk about Star Wars and what's going on. And so again, tomorrow, we're definitely going to be talking about the importance of this movie. The Mandalorian and Grogu film has to work. It's got to be successful. What should they do? How could they ensure its success? There's all kinds of things that we can talk about for tomorrow. So hopefully you guys join us then tomorrow night at 8. I appreciate you guys hanging with us. We did start a half hour later tonight, so, that happens, unfortunately. Work schedules get in the way. So I guess that's it. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man, that's it.
All right. Well, till tomorrow, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.